Hey there, everyone. It's so fantastic to be back with you for another vibrant music teacher chat. Let's get it started. So, if we haven't met already and you're just stumbling across this video, let me let you know a little bit about me. My name is Nicola Canton. I'm a piano teacher over in Dublin, and I run a site called Vibrant Music Teaching, where I share resources with other teachers to help you do things that are more creative and include lots of games and fun in your lesson, as well as plan a more comprehensive curriculum that really moves your students forward. Right now, since this lockdown started for many of us, I've been going live here on YouTube 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, which is what it is today if you're watching right now live. So it is so fantastic to be with you today. And if you're watching here live in the chat, welcome, welcome, welcome. So great to see you here. Let me know whereabouts you are and what's going on with you today and what you want to learn about. I'm kind of having a bit of a theme, I guess, sort of, starting on Fridays. These chats are very loose and they're very free, and we experiment as we go through, and mostly they're about bringing the community together and staying connected with one another while sharing ideas. So I sometimes have interview guests on, I sometimes do different themes and topics, and the general trend that I'm talking about for Fridays is that that's kind of been when I take suggestions from you guys about what you want to hear. I'm open to suggestions all the time, but especially today, I'd love to put a call out for anything that you want to hear me talk about next week, right? What is it that you would like to hear about here on the show? Which guests do you want me to have on? What solo topics do you want me to do? Do you want to see another planning session like I did before? Do you want to hear more about my body lesson time? Is there something else? Do you want to hear more about business topics or more technology tutorials? Whatever it is, I'm open to hearing about it, so let me know. And before we get started with today's topic, which is an interesting and intriguing one, I hope you'll find, I wanted to let you know about a few things. So first of all, the schedule for these chats: Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, as I said, in the afternoon here in Dublin. So it's this time, roughly, each day, depending on where you are in the world. That could be any time for you. So it's the morning-ish over in the US, just for context there, but it's afternoon here in Europe, and it's late over in Australia and New Zealand and Asia. The next thing is that we still have our coupon ongoing. I'm still offering that as long as teachers need it during the pandemic, especially, so that you can get access to resources. So the coupon code is online. That will entitle you to a 1-week trial for $1. So if you want to dive into Vibrant Music Teaching, if you've been thinking about it for a while, or you're just looking for a site for resources right now, you can try that out for $1. There is no long-term commitment from there. You can cancel it and you will not be charged again, just $1. Okay? So if you're feeling financially unstable right now and you want resources at the same time to make your lessons more special, more exciting, more fun, more manageable for you right now, then go on over and check that out. That's vibrantmusicteaching.com, coupon code online. Last little bit of housekeeping before I start talking about these questions that I think teachers might be afraid to ask right now, is that we currently are accepting story submissions for our 100th podcast. So if you go to colourfulkeys.ie/100, you can submit your story there, and I would really, really love it if you could do that. I'm going to be closing that to submissions starting next week, because I need to put them together and make it into a show that makes sense, and our 100th podcast is coming up. So next week will be episode 97, so that's kind of the last time I have to do this, okay? I would really love to hear your stories. We're asking for any lesson that you learned over the last year. So if you listened to the podcast before, it doesn't have to be a lesson you learned on the podcast, by the way. If you listen to the podcast, if you appreciate it, I would appreciate you leaving that message so that we can incorporate into our 100th podcast and have a bit of a celebration. We all need a celebration right now, right? So please do hop on over to colourfulkeys.ie/100 and record your message there. And let's talk about these questions. If you're just joining us now, also let me know about what topics you want to hear about next week. Open to hearing your suggestions there. But today, I wanted to talk about 3 things that have been coming to mind for me lately, and possibly for you too, that I'm sort of afraid to ask myself, and maybe you're afraid to ask at the moment too. Are you ready for the first one? This is the first question. Will the novelty wear off soon? Have you been thinking that? The novelty for your students, for the parents, or for you? Yes, it might not have been super novel at the very beginning of your online teaching. You might not have been thinking, oh, this is great crack, as we say in Ireland, great fun. But as you got into the swing of it, maybe you're thinking, okay, I can do this, right? And the parents, maybe they're thinking, oh, this is great, at least they're, occupied, and it's good that we can still continue lessons. Or maybe the students have been thinking, oh, this is kind of cool, my teacher's on a screen, and we've got all these fun games that are different to in person, and things feel a little bit strange, but in a fun way. And whichever one of those 3 areas, 3 groups of people we're talking about, you might be worrying that it's going to wear off. That the novel factor is going to disappear. And from there, things are going to start to get dicey. Maybe parents are going to start thinking, is this even worth it? Is there even any point doing these online lessons? Should we just leave it until we can be in person? Or maybe students are going to start getting unenthusiastic about their lessons and just not wanting to show up, and they're going to put pressure on their parents to just leave it until they're back. And parents are going to probably give in because right now everything's a bit stressful, and they don't want to put more pressure on their kiddos to continue something that they're not enjoying, so maybe they're going to quit. Or maybe you are just going to say, I have had enough with this. That's it. No more. Don't want to do it. Or maybe I'm going to keep doing it, but I have decided that I hate this. Are any of you feeling like that? Janelle said, it happened yesterday. I'm ready for a break, but it's still about a week before Memorial Day. Well, at least you have one coming up. Janelle, I have just over 6 weeks before the end of the year here in Ireland, and I definitely am looking forward to that summer break. For me, the novelty, there never was any novelty really from my side, but I'm getting into the swing of it and I don't feel burned out on it, but that's through pretty careful management. For me as well, for the student side, I've tried to keep things interesting without making it gimmicky. Because I feel like if there's, little bits of interest and nuggets, and I'll share what some of those are if you guys are interested. If there's that, but there's not really just, it's not too different to in-person lessons. I feel like we could go too far. Maybe I'm waffling a bit now, but I feel like there is a stage where you go too far and it's too gimmicky, and that would wear off faster. So I have been careful with that balance. And for parents, for me, it's just about continuing to emphasize, isn't it great that we can still do piano? Oh, your child is doing awesome, right? Still emphasizing that progress that they're making, because they actually are. Some students have stalled a bit, yes. Some have slowed down a bit. But actually, a lot of my students are going just as fast as ever. The first few weeks, they definitely didn't. So if your students are stalling, if your things are going slower than normal, no shame from me, no guilt on your part, please. But it has started to pick up over time. And now they are moving pretty fast, and I've been doing book deliveries every time they need a new book, right? Because I buy all my books for my students, so I've been popping around. We need to go for a walk, me and my husband anyway, so we go out and do deliveries on our walk when it's within 2 kilometers. Now 5 kilometers we're allowed to walk, so that covers most of my students' houses. Anyway, we've been dropping off books to people, and it's great to do that because it feels like they're moving forward, and it's at roughly the rate I would have been giving out new books anyway, right? But I understand if this question, will the novelty wear off soon, is weighing on your mind, and I want to let you know that you're not alone if you're thinking that, and encourage you to speak up and ask questions that are related to that if that is on your mind. Lots of chat coming in here. Nan said, I'm finding 2 distinct tracks. One style of family is saying, let's keep going, the routine is good for our child. Yeah, absolutely, I know those students too. And one is saying, when is summer break starting? In other words, get me out of here. Yeah, I totally get that, Nan. I think it's understandable for families that do feel that way, or kids that do feel that way. They're just burned out. And it so depends, even more than usual, on what their school is doing, because there's a lot more variety happening right now. Some schools are just sending a few tidbits and saying, have at it. Keep going, please. And some very involved, enthusiastic teachers are sending tons, and it's too much, right? So there's a balance there that is completely tipped in different directions for different students depending on their school, and all sorts of other factors, including parents working, right? So some parents are essential workers and they're out of the house and they're having to find childcare, and that's really tough. And some are trying to work from home and they need as much for their kids to do as possible. And some are saying, you know, this is my chance to not work and to spend time with my kid, and they're just going out for bike rides. So, like, it's all over the shop, and that's totally understandable. Laurie said, for me, it works so much better online. Yeah, great to see you again, Laurie, by the way. That I will not let it get novel. That's why I love all of your ideas and support and resources. Well, I'm delighted to be of help, Laurie, and I think, yeah, not letting it get novel and not letting it get stale either is really important. So sustainable routines that are not just gimmicks, I think, are great. So I have my surprise starters going, which is where I have a little different way of kicking off our buddy lesson time, or regular lesson if it's a solo lesson, and we do a different activity every week. They know it's coming, so it's part of the routine. It is a surprise and it is fun and it is something different that we don't do in person, so that is novel. However, it's not something that I just did for a couple of weeks and then I kind of gave up on it, or I kept it the same for several weeks or whatever. They know it's different every week, and it is part of our core curriculum and what we need to cover. It's all a specific skill that we need to cover. Janelle said, good idea to not keep it too gimmicky. I think a lot of the kids are doing better than in-person lessons, and they are noticing that. They're practicing more. Yeah, some kids are able to practice more. I just want to be cautious with saying that, though, at the same time, because I'm aware some teachers are seeing a way drop off, because it's true within my studio, right? Some kids are practicing more, and they're flying, and that's awesome. But some are hardly practicing at all, because they're finding this change in routine really tough, or the isolation really tough. And so I don't want to be pushing them either, and I don't want to discount what they're feeling and what we need to do for them. If that makes sense. April is also going for walks to deliver books, which is fun. And yeah, Nan, that's how a lot of us are feeling. I'm thankful to still be teaching because I love my job, but I don't like teaching online as much as in person. I don't either. It's not as good to me. I still like it. I still make the most of it, and I still find the positives in it, and there are some benefits versus in person. But I prefer teaching in person. I'm not going to dance around that. That's where I'm at. However, I can still make it as fun as possible and embrace the benefits of it and keep it up and keep it enthusiastic so that kids want to keep it up too. Last little comment here on this, and then I'll move on to the next little topic. Fan said, I feel some students concentrate better while having online lessons, but I feel so tired after just one lesson. I think balance is key. Initially, I was prepared not to work at all and take a break. Yeah, balance is definitely key. Implement those breaks. If you don't have them in your regular schedule, I do. I'm generous with my own breaks anyway, because self-care, basically, just looking after myself. But if you don't have those breaks baked into your schedule, if you're a teacher that teaches back to back, try and bring those breaks in, even if it's just 5 minutes. And the other little thing I would mention in relation to the exhaustion, I find that most teachers who are feeling really exhausted, especially after the first few weeks, so the first few weeks are just shattering for everyone. They are. And that's just reality, because it's all new, you're worried about the technology, everything is different, and that's just going to be tiring, okay? But beyond that, teachers who are not taking breaks are getting more exhausted over the long term. Teachers who have unstable internet connections, or whose students do, and there's no way to sort that out, or they haven't managed to sort it out, that is exhausting. So that is worth investing your time in, since we are doing this for quite a while, to sort that out, so that's not weighing on you. And the last thing is this. That's a microphone. If you have those things in place and you're still, 4, 5, 6 weeks into online lessons, getting totally exhausted. I mean, I still find it a bit more tiring, but getting completely zapped of energy, you might just need a microphone. It's really tiring to raise your voice, and you will have to raise your voice. If you're sitting at a piano and your camera's over there and you don't have a microphone, if it's in the device or it's far away, like this one is on a boom arm, right? So I move it over there when I'm at the keyboard. If you don't have that, you might actually just be getting tired, because it is really tiring. Move my microphone back. Really tiring to talk loudly. That's the truth. Laurie and I were talking about this on the webinar Inside Top Music yesterday. It's so true. That's just a fact. I mean, you can ask your voice teacher friends about this. It's tiring. Think about it as this. Think about it as you singing for several hours, because it is that kind of projection. It's not exactly the same, but you get the idea. Think about a session of singing for several hours. This makes me think of the Kadai camp. I've done a Kadai week-long summer intensive program here in Ireland, in Dublin. The Kadai summer school, they call it. And the first year especially that I did that, every day you're singing almost the entire day in a Kadai training program, okay? And the first year I did it, oh my gosh, that is some of the most tiredness, I don't know how to phrase that sentence correctly, that is the most tired I have ever felt, almost. Really, it was exhausting. And this is similar. It's just using your voice. It's a muscle, and it gets tired, and it makes you tired. So that's just a little side note there. Let's get on to the next topic. That's one of the questions I feel that some of us are afraid to ask right now. Oh, and by the way, before I move on to the next topic, if you're just joining us, let me know what topics you want to hear about over in the chat, because I'm open to new suggestions for things you want to hear about next week in these chats. If you're not aware, I'm doing these 3 times a week, so there's lots of scope for exploring different things. So let me know, do you want to hear another planning session? If you were in on that and you enjoyed that and you'd like to see that again, to be different students, different parts of the progress, and maybe you learned a lot from that and you want to see another one of those. Maybe you want to hear some more about marketing. One idea I had was, if people want to, I can do website reviews live here on a video. So that's another idea. If you would be willing to add your website in, it means me commenting on it and telling you improvements live on video. So only if you're open to that will it work, right? I'd need examples to review, or Facebook pages or YouTube channels, whatever. And yeah, any other topics that you want to hear about. So, next question. that I think people don't want to ask right now or are afraid to ask right now. Let me know if this resonates. When can or should I teach in person again? Maybe you're not afraid to ask this. Maybe you're quite open to asking this. But I think people are a little bit nervous to bring this up, and especially nervous to bring it up with parents because there's no certainty. There's no good answer to this. I'll tell you my answer right up front. My answer is to follow the schools. So that is more difficult in some places than others. So I want to be aware of that when I say that as an answer, because all of the schools in Ireland are going to do the same thing. Every single school, not just in my area, but in the country, okay? They're going to follow what the government says. The government is going to say schools reopen on whatever, 20th of September or whatever they decide. And everyone's going to do that. So when I say I'm following what the schools do, I can say that, and that can be a real thing. And I'm aware that it won't be everywhere. However, that is my answer. Our government has also brought out guidelines in terms of, okay, businesses that are going to reopen, like more generally, outside of education specifically, but more generally, which businesses can reopen in these different phases, and what precautions do they need to take in that time. And in some of the Irish music teacher, music school groups, teachers have started having discussions of, okay, well, our classroom sizes are this size, that doesn't allow for 2 meter spacing and all of this. And to me, these discussions are a bit irrelevant because they're just premature. They're not irrelevant. And I totally get wanting to chat it out. But they're premature because, I mean, those phases might move. They're not at all definite. And also, if we're really at the stage of thinking we have to have observed 2 meter distancing within a classroom when we're teaching, we have to wear masks and we have to sanitize our hands, I think online lessons are still going to be better at that stage. It's going to be a judgment call, and I'm going to make that as more information becomes available, but I can't see how I can say right now, and some teachers have maybe sent out messaging around this already, and I just don't see that as a possibility to say to parents, I'm going to open in September and this is how we're going to implement 2 meter distancing within the lesson, and we're going to have hand washing stations and blah, blah, blah. I understand the instinct to want to say something, and I will say something to parents, but what I will say will be a lot looser. It will be more on the basis of, the government has said that they're probably going to reopen schools on a phase basis in September. We're watching what's happening with the schools closely and staying on top of that, and we'll let you know once we can share something concrete. But in the meantime, I think it's sensible to plan to stay online, or, just a little bit less definite, still acting as a leader almost. I think it's important to take that role with parents that you're saying, I've got this, chill, I'm in control of the situation, and I'm on top of it, while also leaving it a little bit open for their feedback, of course, and saying to them, and anytime I'm making this kind of announcement, I am saying, of course, even if we do start back in person and you have a particular concern, they live with a grandparent, they have asthma, whatever, that means that you want to stay online, that's fine. Everyone can do that as long as they want to. Just checking in with the chat here about this. Let me see here. April, oh my god, I've been thinking of the same topic for the past 2 days. Yeah, it's a big thing on everyone's mind. And Janelle said, yep, to topic number 2 also, you're reading my mind. Yeah, Melissa, it's interesting to know that you're on board with me. This isn't how every teacher will feel, right? She says, I totally agree. If we need to distance, then I'd rather do online. It depends on the distancing restriction. It depends on so many things. But I've been picturing this in my head and going, okay, I normally have side-by-side pianos. I have this digital in my studio normally, in my living room, and a piano. To keep 2 meter distancing with the student in the middle of the piano, I would have to be further away than the end of the second piano. That's too far. I'm closer to them on the screen. I can see more of what they're doing on the screen. Yes, the sound would definitely be better. So it is about weighing it up, but it's too far. And I just think with the amount of young students that I teach, it's not realistic. They're not going to keep that 2 meter distancing. And anyway, side note, and we don't want to get into the science right now, but the 2 meter distancing is actually for outside anyway. It's not supposed to be for inside. And even in a reasonably well ventilated room, it's probably not anything. Like, it's not sufficient to actually prevent anything. And I think that young kids are going to be too tempted to come up to you. So, yeah. Janelle, what do you feel about starting new students online? I usually do that in the summer. I've never started a newbie, young ones age 6 online, but I don't want the wait list to evaporate either. Yeah, Janelle, absolutely. I think go for it. As long as you're willing to get a bit of experimental, invest a bit of time, of course, yourself learning about what's going to work, and, say to parents, we don't normally teach online, but I don't want to delay your kiddo starting, and we're absolutely up for it. I'll need you in the room for the first several lessons, and we'll be having some fun and doing some experiments, but it should be great. If you take that positive, but at the same time sort of open vibe, I think it can work. And I will say, Janelle, I haven't personally started a brand new student since going online. That's because I have literally no space. I did start a new student just before we went online. So I had him for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we went online, and he has been an absolute trooper with it. He's been wonderful, and he's doing really, really well. That wouldn't be with every kid. He is fairly focused. The other thing I will say, Janelle, though, is that a teacher who works with me has started a brand new 5-year-old, and it's going great. So it can happen. Dad is in the room during that, and I think it's important to have a supportive parent in place, but it absolutely can be done. Elizabeth, I'm concerned about student retention for fall and finding new students. Yeah, I think if you take the right approach, I don't think it has to be a major concern. I totally get where you're coming from, Elizabeth. I think we have to be careful around that and around how we communicate with parents of returning students. I'm hoping to still have good retention. I think if we're open with parents and keep communicating with them about this is, how it is right now, we're making the most of this is all the fantastic stuff that's happening online. We want to get back to in person if that is what you want. As soon as it's safe to do so, and we have all your best interests at heart, and this is the best way right now to keep your child progressing and not lose any of that wonderful progress that they've been making. So that's part of the communication. The other part for me is around, or the other concern there is maybe around finances, if parents in your area are losing jobs, and I think we need to be sensitive to that as well. But yeah, you know what I mean. Laurie said, I travel taught, and when my students had bad colds, I wouldn't touch the piano anyway. Even if they came to me, I would have more control over the sanitation, but I would still choose to stay online. Yeah, like, it's a different realm, right? I mean, sanitizing pianos, it's in the air, it's water droplets, so without being alarmist about it, and especially you have to weigh this up in terms of what it means to your health. If you're older, if you have an underlying condition, or if you live with someone that does, and you need to protect them, that's a factor too. You ready for the last question that I think people might be afraid to ask right now? This is it. Should I raise my rates this year? Has anyone had this on their mind? This is the one I was most I'm actually feeling a little bit nervous putting this on screen because it's been really playing on me. Should I still do it? I'm a big proponent of raising your rates every year, but this year has given me pause. I think you can understand why. I mean, parents are losing jobs, or they're down in some respect financially. things are tough, just in general. And one factor that I don't personally feel, but you may be feeling, is online lessons aren't actually as good as in person, and they haven't been getting as good of a deal lately. And so I want to do this as a goodwill gesture. I want to not raise my rates, or I want to lower my rates. Have any of you been feeling that way? I am going to. I was already, you all know I'm a planner, right? People who know me well know that I'm a planner. So I had already worked out my new rates in my Google Sheet in February, before any of this. So they were already in place. Now it's an even smaller increase than I normally do, and I'm adding even more value because, I think you need to balance that every year anyway. Like, how far am I going to go up? I was sort of moving up, it's between 3 and 5% every year, but this year it's more towards the 3% because I just felt like that was the right balance for where I'm at in the market. So it was already a small increase, and I'm adding a lot of stuff. I'm adding group workshops. Those of you who listen to the podcast will know about that. I'm adding more group workshops and changing some things there. So it's a small increase, but I was nervous about it. I still am nervous about it because I'm also taking away the shorter lesson length. So for some people it will be a bigger jump because of that. Not for the same amount of time, but still it's a bigger jump. So it's been weighing on me, but I've decided to do it. With the caveat that I'm going to slightly more formalize my scholarships programs and mention that along with the fees. Not as I'm raising my rates, but if but you don't really have to pay them. But just as an aside, so sending out the information about next year, and in the same email saying, I know that some of us are going through hard times right now, and you may not be aware, but I have for a long time offered scholarships to those who are having trouble continuing to pay the fees. So if you are interested in applying for that, here's some more details about it. I've set up a page on my site to formalize it slightly. It's still just a matter of them getting in touch with me to discuss it, but at least it's set up in a more official way. And I think by mentioning that to get together with my new fees, I think it's just the right balance for me. But tell me what it is for you. Tell me how you're feeling about this. Maypo said, didn't raise rates last year with grand plans to do so this year, but now, sigh. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It depends on things where you are, right? And you do have to be sensitive to that. Unemployment will go up here, and it will continue to do so. We don't have as much of an issue as the figures that I've heard from the US. It is going up, absolutely. It is a problem, for sure, but it's not as much. And we do have better social welfare and all that kind of stuff. Higher compensation and job seekers benefits and all this. Doesn't mean it's easy for families. I'm not going to tell you that it is. If a parent loses their job here, it is not easy. But it is maybe that we have a lot more cushioning. So keep that in mind while I'm sharing what I'm doing. But that's where I've come out of it. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. Let me know what you're going to do. Sharon said, wasn't planning to raise rates, but I need to take fewer students to allow myself breaks, and I feel I need to have more time with students online. So feel maybe I have to. Yeah, that's another side to this. Maybe to make the same income teaching online, you will have to raise your rates. It's a thing. I would say that if you're in an area where you're thinking, I'm going to have to continue to teach online for at least a chunk of next year, it depends where you are. If you're in a particularly badly struck area, that might be the case. And if that's the case, and you're feeling nervous about raising your rates or even maintaining the current ones you have, consider adding something extra. One of the big reasons why I don't feel like online lessons weren't as valuable or weren't good in some way hasn't been a major factor for me in considering whether or not to raise my rates. One of the reasons I feel like that is I have added a little bit extra. I have been doing practice with pals sessions, group workshops for my kids to bring them together. Totally optional, but that has been there for people. I have been putting effort into the online lessons, and I've been making sure it's as smooth as possible for parents. And I think they feel like that, right? I think they can see where I am and that I'm doing everything that I can to still provide a fantastic experience, and that their kids are getting a fantastic experience. Yes, sometimes, losing connection due to a tech issue, but that this was not just better than nothing, but actually good. Okay? And so if that's the case, I don't feel like, even if I have to continue online lessons, that my rates should be less because of that. However, as I said, I was still nervous about raising them because I want to be sensitive to what's going on around me. And by the way, the area I live in is not affluent. People do not have, huge backup savings accounts. That's not where we're at. Okay? So I do have to be sensitive to this, and I am. But this is where I've landed. It's still going up as planned. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to do it. Gonna stick to what I believe in and what I think is right while mentioning the scholarships. Nan, great advice for people in general. If you've been undercharging, you shouldn't feel nervous about increasing your price. I've been in that place in the past and it was better received than I expected. Great advice, Nan, and absolutely true. People often think, especially those who are charging very low rates, tend to be very nervous about raising rates, and actually it's unfounded, and that not that many students quit. I still believe in raising your rates or changing your rates at least a little every single year, because I just feel that it builds that expectation that you can't just rely on these rates, and it does help to mitigate any parents who might, kick up a fuss when you do raise their rates by a big chunk every few years. That's much harder to swallow. And them changing every year, it's just, part of the process, and it's just what happens. And most parents will take the summers off in where I'm at. So they really do enroll from September to June and September to June. That's just how it is. And with that kind of process in place, there's no reason for them to think that the rate should stay the same. I mean, there just isn't. That's not how it works. If you enroll in a school, they just tell you the new rates for the new year, and it's usually more, and you just take it. Ours are not going up nearly as much as most schools would in general. I'm talking about private schools here, but you get the idea. Yeah, Laurie, that's a great point for travel teachers. She said, I feel like I'm making more money because travel time and gas. Yeah. I have actually, so the two teachers that work at Colourful Keys, they travel to students' homes, and I've actually refunded that travel fee. But that's because I have both options. And so they're getting the same service now as the students who normally come to me. So, not saying we haven't been hit financially at all. We definitely lost that travel fee, but that's specific to when you have both options and they are paying extra for that service. Linda, this question is for a future show. Great, thank you. How do you come up with an appropriate charge for including all the books you would be using, especially if you use many books? What about single sheet music? Yeah, we could dive into all-inclusive fees. That's something I've talked about recently. We could talk about fees structuring in general. That's a great idea, Linda. Thank you for that one. Nan, how many teaching hours do I put in? I presume that's directed towards me. Just over 20. It's supposed to be capped at 20. I'm so bold. It's just over 20 though, teaching hours. So that's where I'm at, and that's where I stick to each year. So that I set that for myself as a way to not allow myself to, cram my week full. It depends what type of person you are. Maybe you would, different types of people work differently, but I know I need to set rules like that. I need to have, okay, it's max 20 hours of teaching, actual teaching time, and this is the number of hours amount of time and amount of students I can go without scheduling a break and stuff like that. Because otherwise, I just find when you look at that spreadsheet, as I set it up on a spreadsheet, and you're piecing people around, it looks like, oh, I can just slot them in there and you can just do that. And if I don't have those concrete rules, I'll do that. And then in reality of actually teaching that, it doesn't work. It's too much. So yeah, just something to consider if you're like me, I guess. Okay, thank you all so much for joining me today. Do let me know if you have any topics you want to hear about next time, or anyone that has been posted in the comments here that you're particularly interested in, so that I can see which ones are the most popular, which ones people want to hear about the most. And I'll check in with the chat, so if you're watching on the replay before next week, let me know what topics you want to hear about. Deb asked a follow-up question about the teaching hours, 20 hours plus planning time. Yeah, that's teaching hours. Okay, so that's just my actual teaching time. Absolutely plus planning time. I do work a lot. There's no lie to be told there. That's the truth. I like working. I work a lot. 20 hours of teaching time is the maximum for me with everything else that I do. Fun VMT games that we could do online. There are so many options here already, so if you haven't seen them yet, let me quickly show you. No, I won't show it on screen, but I can do that in a future session if you want to know specifically a rundown of where to find the games, but there is a lot out there in terms of that. We have the new section of the community where members have uploaded their own versions of games that you can play on screen, created using PowerPoint or Google Slides. So go over to the community area. It's brand new. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely go and check that out. You'll find it under the community menu on the site. Also, if you go to the printable library, the games that are up the top all have online versions. So if you go to any of the most recent ones, they have online versions. And the last thing I would say is if you go to format, you can see the new no to low print, the low print option. And if you select that, you'll see ones that need very little printing, so you can ask parents to do it, or they require no printing, so you can do them without needing anything else printed out physically. So I hope that helps in terms of a rundown of that. Plenty of options there already. Melissa asked if I chatted about the topic of addressing technique. No, that's a good one, Melissa. I'll absolutely make a note of that. Online games from Mary, if I give examples of those. Okay, we can dive into that. These are all great ideas. Keep them coming in if you're watching now, or if you're watching on the replay. I'd love to hear your ideas, and I hope you enjoyed this discussion today. A bit of a different one. Well, every sort of session here is different, so doing lots of experiments, but those 3 questions just came to mind as I was thinking about doing this session, and I thought, I wonder if other people are feeling this way. I bet they are. So if you have been feeling this way, if you resonated with those questions, make sure you hit the like button on this video to let me know. Make sure to subscribe to the Colourful Keys channel right here so that you get the next one of these videos as soon as they go live, and as well as the pre-recorded content, the videos that we're putting up every week. Lots of fantastic stuff coming up in the pipeline for online lessons, for teaching in general. Lots of fun content coming up. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. And I hope you can join me next week for some of these topics that we're going to be diving into, suggested by all of you. And feel free to suggest interview guests if there's particular people you want me to have on as well. And any other feedback about these shows. I'm open to helpful, constructive feedback, but you're all teachers, so it's all going to be constructive, right? Thank you all so much again for joining me. It's always fabulous and fantastic. I tried to combine the 2 words there. It did not go well. Fabutastic? Something like that was about to come out. It's always fabutastic to hang out with you all and to get to share these ideas and maybe commiserate a little bit over some of the worries we're having right now. So until next week, I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.